ValveTime.net.
Today sees the release of CSGO, the latest reincarnation of the Counter-Strike series, having gone through several sequels since the original mod back in 1999. Arguably, the Condition Zero and CSS variants have failed to establish themselves as true sequels and have only served as sequential high-definition skin packs. So, has CSGO reached the status of becoming the true sequel to Counter-Strike? Well, yes it is. Condition Zero wasn't developed by Valve, and CSS was always the lesser-loved sidekick to complement the release of Half-Life 2. But CSGO has received the full attention and love the sequel really needed. Beyond the visual improvements, which use the current version of the source engine, not too dissimilar to what Left 4 Dead 2 uses, Valve have directed their attention to map adjustments, gameplay tweaks, and true competitive play support. Gameplay. The most important facet of CS was the highly addictive gameplay, and CSGO has wrestled with the source engine to bring back the old feel from the 1.6 days. Consultation with competitive gamers has helped tweak the system as the game has gone through several major changes throughout the open beta period. The game initially feels very familiar in the way the player moves and the guns handle. To the die-hard fans, the minute changes will stick out, but those have been made in response to Valve's monstrous stat tracking and player feedback. Some features we've come to love were actually bugged, such as swapping weapons while attaching a silencer to skip the animation are now fixed, despite how endearing such nuisances as this have been. The term fast-paced tactical shooter is bandied around all too often these days, but in fairness to Counter-Strike, it was one of the initial pioneers in a now very crowded space. For most of us wanting to pick up CSGO, you'll be feeling the nostalgia in your veins, recalling your misspent teenage years playing Dust, Aztec, and Office, all of which return. That might be your only reason to return to CS, but it might also be your reason not to. The competition has certainly stepped up, and those players used to unlockables and perky power-ups might feel CSGO as a little one-dimensional in this regard. Bravely, Valve have kept Counter-Strike, and have focused on what is truly important: addictive, fun gameplay. Regenerating health has no place, neither do iron sights. While talking about sticking to your guns, Valve have literally done just that, with the usual array of weapons, but with a sprinkling of new, including the Nova shotgun, Molotov cocktails, and the Zeus stun gun. The rebalance of the old along with the new have helped sway the gun selection from your usual M4A1 versus AK-47 battles and give players something new to think about. Molotovs are excellent at area denial, cutting off certain attack points or preventing bomb disarms. This changes many dynamics of the game, giving players more to think about in terms of positioning and coordination. The purist perhaps would have hoped for a prettier Counter-Strike without deviation from the classic, but the game does show its age in places, and some fresh ideas have certainly helped keep things more interesting. Presentation. The freshest of which is how impressive the maps and models look to this version of the source engine. Some remakes of the classic maps and other CS titles have just been a new coat of varnish, but Valve have really done well to massively improve the overall aesthetic of the game. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles you would find in other major multiplayer FPS titles, but the level of detail is sufficient to appease 2012 standards. Previous issues with hitboxes and hit detection on player models from CSS have been eradicated from CSGO. Further testament to Valve's focus on ensuring the gameplay and not going overboard on unnecessary visual improvements. The classic maps not only look better, but also play better. Dust 2 and Aztec are two key examples where major geographical changes have altered the flow of the maps for the better. Beyond the classic mode of defusal and hostage rescue maps, there is a whole new game mode titled Arsenal Mode, which in a breath is essentially two variations of the classic gun game mode. Currently, Arsenal Mode sports 8 new maps, all of which aim to become future classics of Counter-Strike, many of which will be familiar to you instantly, having been pinched right out of the Left 4 Dead games, and Valve have done a great job sprucing them up for the CS experience. Rest assured, they haven't just turned up the lighting, but worked on making these maps exciting to play, not an easy feat in what are essentially kill boxes. Although Arsenal Mode isn't a new idea in this space, it's a welcome addition as a change of pace to the classic game. Valve are keen to support other game modes and are encouraging the community to mod their own game modes, which they've started the ball rolling with the very popular CSS Zombie mod. Working with the mod team, the Zombie mod is being released on launch, so we're yet to play it ourselves. These modes all fall under the category of casual mode, a new distinction for Counter-Strike, with competitive mode offering a closer experience to the original game. An ELO matchmaking system operates for competitive mode on servers provided by Valve, with set server commands and modified maps to support competitive play. For us, we've always been more the casual player, jumping into a quick game for a CS fix, but it's great to have the option of being able to play a matchmaking game at the drop of a hat without having to scour IRC for a scrim. The back-end support for competitive play has evidently been a focal point in the development of CSGO, and we're sure as development continues, Valve will continue to impress us with new features. If the competitive side isn't for you, you can stick with the casual games, and the soon-to-be-added Steam Workshop support will give players the ability to download and rate custom maps, just as Portal 2 did with the Puzzle Maker. Performance. As with most Valve games, you will find everything well optimized for the average PC and Mac specs, determined by the Steam Hardware Survey. As mentioned earlier, the game looks the part for today's standards, but it's not breaking any barriers in this regard. Engine advancements behind the scene have been added, especially for audio spatialization, which makes a huge difference for the game's immersion and tactics. Distance of gunfire and direction are integral to locating your enemies, as well as listening out for footsteps. Valve have attempted to ensure that regardless of your personal setups, that the playing field is level for all players, something especially important in competitive play. In Counter-Strikes of old, players could disable certain effects and get an advantage, lessening the impact of smoke grenades or flashbangs. CSGO has had much of these options locked away from prying hands, as well as forcing DirectX 9 for all players. Conclusion. In summary, we're really excited to see Valve roll out a true sequel to Counter-Strike 1.6. It certainly feels like a return to the original game after some of the changes which came with CSS. In the current space CSGO occupies, it isn't groundbreaking, but you can be assured that the support Valve will give CSGO will take your $15 further than most games could. Yes, and it's only $12 or £12, and you will have access to all the game content. Map packs or DLC have no place here. For the new players looking for a content-filled, well-balanced shooter, you will find it. If on the other hand you're looking for nostalgia, you won't be disappointed to find Counter-Strike with a few sweeteners. For gameplay, we give it an A-. For presentation, we give it a B. For performance, we give it a B+. And for overall, we give it a B. Counter-Strike Global Offensive is now available for $15 on PlayStation Network, Xbox Live Arcade, and Steam for PC and Mac. Subscribe for more news and reviews soon. Bye for now.